We just learned that the Fed Governor Lisa Cook will sue over Trump's effort to remove her. What are you hearing?
Well, Manu, this is an expected next chapter of this. Lisa Cook, of course, a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors appointed in the Biden administration, as now in the crosshairs of President Trump. So President Trump has been, of course, escalating his attacks on the Federal Reserve. But now Lisa Cook is saying that she will sue. So this is going to end up likely in the Supreme Court, and it is going to test the independence of the Federal Reserve and the independence of this body, which of course is important to every American because it controls interest rates. But the president has taken considerable interest and has been leveling a considerable criticism for months against Jerome Powell, the chair of the board. But now he's also aiming his fire at Lisa Cook. So she is saying that the president does not have cause to fire her, and this will be litigated in the courts. And we've seen a chapter or a preview of some of these cases and other of the many, many legal cases that have come forward in the Trump administration. One that comes to mind is the National Labor Relations Board. When Trump removed the previous appointees, was allowed to do that. However, the higher court is weighing in that case and saying the Federal Reserve is separate. It is a quasi-independent agency. So this has never been tested in a court of law before, and she's the first member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors to ever be fired by a U.S. president. So once again, we are entering sort of uncharted legal territory here, where the bottom line is how much of the executive authority can the president actually flex, and is the Federal Reserve independent or not?
Yeah, huge questions there. Another big question will be about his plans to escalate this military crackdown in America's biggest cities. What do you expect the president to say about that effort, Jeff?
Well, look, when he meets with his cabinet shortly, that is one of the questions hanging over this. Of course, the president signed an executive order just yesterday directing his Secretary of Defense to create these specialized units in every state chapter of the National Guard that could respond in a moment's notice at any a disorder in public streets. But what we are seeing here is just a blurring of the lines between the nation's military and the law enforcement agencies. So the president is clearly quite proud of the efforts that he has done here in Washington, D.C. He has threatened to do so elsewhere, of course, mentioning Chicago several times, Baltimore, other cities as well. We will see if he actually does that. But this is certainly something that could come up in the cabinet meeting. But Manu, a bigger question is, for all of the other challenges that actually do exist around the cabinet room, of course, foreign relations, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, whatever happened to that meeting with Vladimir Putin and President Zelensky? The Kremlin has been silent on that. There are many other challenges as well, really, around the room. My question, what I'll be looking for here is how much of those actually come up, or is it simply the month of changing the subject here in Washington?
It often is. Jeff Zeleny live first with the White House. We'll be back with you with news from this cabinet meeting as well. And here in the room, I'm joined by a terrific group of reporters: Jackie Kucinich of the Boston Globe, Zolan Kano-Youngs of the New York Times, Rachel Bate of Politico, and Josh Dawsey of the Wall Street Journal, who's also the co-author of an excellent book, 2024, How Trump Retook the White House and the Democrats Lost America. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Yes. So why is Trump picking this fight over Lisa Cook? Does he actually think he can win this? Because the Supreme Court has suggested that it's not something that he can do, and there's not clear there's cause to do it. What are you hearing about his strategy and his mindset here?
Well, as we've seen time and time again, he tests the limits on what he can do and makes courts slap him down and pushes things to the courts. It's a multi-pronged strategy to pressure Jerome Powell. You see him attacking Jerome Powell over the building construction project, the Federal Reserve, going there, donning the hard hat, doing the press conference, posting about him nonstop, going after other members of the board, having his team go after other members of the board. It's a concerted effort to put pressure on Powell and Lisa Cook. You have to imagine if that Federal Reserve lowered the interest rates and did what the president wanted, he might be less interested in Jerome Powell spending on a building or Lisa Cook's mortgage or other things. But when Trump focuses on something, as we've seen time and time again, he uses various levers of the government and various people to make people's lives miserable in an effort to get what he wants. And he oftentimes in this presidency has been successful. He's been able to pressure people, major institutions, Harvard, universities, law firms, everyone, to give him what he wants. So we'll see here if he's able to get by with this. But it's kind of his playbook where he asks people to do something or demands they do it. If they don't do what he wants, he sort of makes their life tough, and that's what he's doing here.
It also feels a little bit like a trial balloon right now,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Firing
Totally.
Jay Powell. I mean, a lot of people, advisors privately, have said, there could be blowback if you do something like this. Yes, you get rid of him, you try to lower the interest rates, et cetera, but the markets could freak out. There could be some sort of economic consequences. Now he's sort of dipping his toe into the water without going all in right now, and he'll probably be watching the coverage and how, the stock market reacts. In terms of whether he can do it, I mean, look, the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on this yet. Yeah, they've hinted that they think there could be an issue here, but if you think about it with Donald Trump, he has done so many things that a lot of people said were unconstitutional and actually won in the courts. I mean, he got rid of a whole bunch of federal workers. I remember first
Without
term
Congress's consent,
emergency
yeah.
declarations to send troops to the border, won on that. I mean, he wins all the time on these things. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah. All right, everyone stand by. We're going to still discuss this. But I want to bring in CNN's Richard Quest and ask a little bit about the implications of this. So Richard, tell us about those implications. If Trump is able to fire Lisa Cook.
If he's able to successfully get rid of her, then essentially the whole definition of firing somebody for cause, because that's what it is, has now been then defined, and he'll be able to have a much freer reign. Because the reality is, in the case of Lisa Cook, whatever the situation is with these 2 mortgages that she had, certainly there's no allegation that she's done anything wrong in her job at the Fed. And secondly, these are still allegations of her work before then. So to get rid of her for cause about something unrelated to, that's not been proved, would be a most remarkable achievement. But as one of your other panelists said, he seems to do that again and again. I will say, to the question of his ability to do these things and get away with it, it is because those other checks and balances that would have kicked in, his own party, Congress, are not doing so. It's different with Lisa Cook in a sense because there's the other Fed governors.
So Richard, stocks in the U.S. don't seem to be moving much on this news and this effort by Trump to fire Lisa Cook. But I'm wondering, what other economic data are you watching for today?
Consumer confidence. That's the number people are looking at. It has dipped, not dramatically, but consumer confidence has dipped, and that's because people are worried. They're worried about, obviously, continuing inflation, which remains elevated. That's the Fed's language. Elevated because of tariffs. And people are wondering where the economy is going. We know there's a slowdown because of tariffs. We know the tariffs are here and staying, so there is a concern. But we're still a long way off what I would describe as panic numbers for those.
Yeah, we'll see if that actually comes to pass. All right, Richard Quest, thank you for that analysis. Appreciate it. Back here in the room. I mean, this is the latest in the long line of Trump firing or attempting to fire people who don't agree with them. Just, the Lisa Cook, there was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency after the Iran initial assessment suggested the Iran strikes were not as successful as Trump had claimed initially. And then, of course, the Bureau of Labor Statistics head, because a jobs report came out that he didn't like. Mm-hmm. This is a long pattern of Trump and now this unprecedented effort.
Oh, and the Federal Reserve is different from all of these things, right? Because they are a independent entity here. But as Josh said, he is going to keep trying to test the fences here. Look, he tried to do this with Powell. Remember, he said that something about the overruns of the cost of the Federal Reserve renovations were Powell's fault. And then we had that, for lack of a better word, epic moment in front of the Federal Reserve where you had them both in the hard hats and Powell correcting Trump right there on the spot. That seems to have dialed back perhaps some of the pressure on Powell himself, but Trump is rarely deterred by these things. And so, we can only imagine that he's going to keep pressing. Now, this isn't imminent because we know that that Cook is going to sue Trump and try to keep her job at this point.
This moment is almost the convergence of two themes of the Trump administration. One being this expansion of power, the eroding of guardrails, right? Trying to have a grip on traditionally independent institutions. And the other also being a sense of this retribution tour that we often talk about, in the sense that the president has shown that he is willing to push out officials, career officials, a lead statistician, a bureaucrat, who he disagrees with, who express dissent.
Or just as saying
even
the
if
facts,
they're just doing their
right.
job,
Yeah,
right?
the facts may disagree with his narrative.
That's right. That's right. And you've seen him go after people that may be political rivals or what have you. This is different, right? Because of what you just said. This is somebody who's doing their job in an independent institution, but there's a policy goal that he wants to accomplish, a policy goal that by design has been out of his control, to lower interest rates and actually, try to shape the economy in a
But
more
it's not
positive way.
completely out of his control in that tariffs
Yeah.
are one of the reasons that the interest rates are where they are at this point. So you're right. You're absolutely right that, where interest rates, he can't move interest rates. But his actions have produced this consequence.